Welcome back, everybody. A3R here again. On this episode, we're going to cover one of the most important decisions you're going to have to make when working on your classic car, and that is what seats do you put in the vehicle. As you know, on Project 68, this is a 1968 Mustang. 68 for Ford with the Mustangs was the first year headrests were an option. Most of the cars didn't get the headrests. It was part of the deluxe package group, if whatever it was called back then. So most of them still had the stock low bucket seats. Even with the headrests that were put on the car, it was still on the low bucket seats. So you had to extend it pretty high to actually have it be the safety feature it was intended to be. So with your classic car, you have the choice of going back to stock, factory installed seats, and have them refurbished, reupholstered, and all that. Most of that stuff is available, especially for the Mustangs. New seat foam is available, new vinyl is available, so you can get them recovered and have them look completely factory. If you're going concourse, if you watch my channel, you know this is not a concourse car. This is kind of a budget weekend car, street driving, just a driver quality car. But I do want to make it safer. I do want to make it a bit of a resto mod, so I want to have it be safer than what it came out in 1968, but still look fairly period correct. So some of the other options you have with seats are aftermarket through companies like TMI has quite a few options for seats where they have either low buckets or they have high buckets. They have seats that have headrests. Corbeau has racing seats and stuff like that, are really pricey. Recaro has a bunch of seats, and all of these seats you can get fabricated and bolt in to your classic Mustang. One of the other options for classic Mustangs, especially the 68 and earlier that didn't have the headrest, is putting in 6970 seats or 71 through 73 Mustang seats, which had a high bucket seat, so it was safer in a rear end collision. Another option that's fairly popular is putting in late model Mustang seats, anywhere from 79 all the way up to the new generations of the 2020s and the 2025s and stuff like that, with those seats where they have the high back, they have the adjustable headrest, they have power options. So a lot of that stuff can still be incorporated into the car with some minor modifications. What I'm going to do, what I've decided to do, is take the seats out of a Fox body Mustang, specifically a 1992 GT hatchback, because for me they have the same foam and they have the same stitching pattern that is similar to the 1968 Mustangs. So they have the vertical pleats in the seats that will match the vertical pleats that are in the back, so they will look very factory. The seat design themselves is very close to what the seats out of the 68 look like, with the vertical pleats and then the rib that goes on the outside. So they will look very, very close to the factory seats, but they are higher back and they have the headrest. It's still small, but it is in the position to where it fits. It hits, for most people, on the back of the head. So it will be the safety feature that you want it to be. So let's go ahead and look at, first we'll look at the interior on the seat pan and how that looks. Then we'll start working on the 1992 seats to see how we're going to get those put into the car with as little fabrication and with as little modification as possible. All right, so here's the interior of the 68 Mustang. This right here in the middle is your seat riser. It is welded on the bottom, on the sides, and in the front to the floor pan itself. This is the stock seat riser. This has not been modified, other than I think it's been re-welded a little bit that I've seen if you've watched some of the other videos. But this is how the stock floor pan looks. The seat itself bolts into the 4 holes on each side. The seat track has bolts in it that slide through those holes, and then you put in a compression nut from the bottom side of the car. So one of the options is to take the seat pan itself out and modify it and either lower it and put it back in, or take it out completely to put in some aftermarket seats, which gives you the option of, you know, 6, 8, or 10-way adjustable seats. But I don't have the opportunity to do that. I don't have a cutter. I don't have a welder. I don't have any of that stuff on hand. I don't have that ability. So I want to keep this as stock as possible. So I'm leaving the seat pan in. And that's one of the reasons I chose the 92 Fox body seats. All of the seats from original 1964.5 all the way up through the current seats have the same track width. So the holes from here to here is the same width. It's just the length from the front hole to the back hole that's a little bit different that you might have to modify. So any seats from a majority of the Ford cars will fit in these, other than some of the Mazda brands like the Probe and the Contour and stuff like that. Mustang seats will fit in here, Crown Vic seats will fit in here, Taurus seats will fit in here. I believe some of the Bronco seats will fit in here. So you have a lot of options to choose. So for me, like I said, I went with the 1992 Fox body seats because of the design. So let's go ahead and look at those seats and see what our starting point is. All right, so here is the Fox body seats. These are black tweed seats out of a 92 GT hatchback. So they have the smaller headrest on the top of them, but the backrest itself is quite a bit higher than what the factory 68 Mustang came with. So as you see, they have the vertical pleats in them, which matches the design of the 68 Mustang, which is one of the reasons I chose them. I picked up these seats. I picked up the front and the rear seats, the whole entire set, for about $300. I tried to see if the rear seat would fit into the back, but it's quite a bit narrower. But I did want to see if I could work in the fold down rear seat portion of the 92 Mustang and put that into the 68. But they're just quite a bit too narrow for me, and I didn't have you know, the means to fabricate new side panels for the back of the coupe. So I went ahead and sold those. So right now I've got about, you know, $160 in these seats, which isn't bad. They're pretty good condition. The foam is still really good. There's just the one mark on the driver's side at the bottom where that wear mark is. But for now, I'll probably just cover that up, and I'll just patch that part of the seat until I decide on what I'm going to do with recovering it in all vinyl, or even what kind of leather, or what color I want to do. So right now they're serviceable enough for a daily driver, for a weekend car. So let's flip these over and look at the bottom side of the seat and see what we need to do to get these bolted in to the 68 Mustang. All right, so here's the bottom side of the 92 Mustang Fox body seats. The issue with these seats is how they come from the 92 is the seat riser already is built onto the seat. It's not part of the floor pan. If you try to bolt this onto the floor pan or onto the seat riser, these holes will not line up, and you'll be sitting about 2 inches higher than what the stock 68 Mustang sits. So your head's going to be pretty much into the roof. The other option is to take out the seat pan and bolt this into the floor pan, which some people have done. The route I'm going to go with is to unbolt the tracks and bolt in new tracks that I picked up from Kentucky Mustang. But you can pick these up from NPD, you can pick them up from CJ Pony Parts, you can pick them up from quite a few different vendors, or you can just rebuild your original seat tracks, get them greased, get them cleaned up, and they're pretty functional. They're pretty simple operation. They just slide, so they're pretty easy to rebuild. The issue that I had with mine was that they were pretty rusted. It looked like they're a little bit bent, so they don't slide very well, and I'm missing all of the springs. So for me, it was just as easy to get brand new tracks as it was to clean them up, repaint them, straighten them out, and get the springs that go onto it. So that's the route I wanted to do. And like I said, I'm doing most of this stuff. I'm trying to replace as much parts as I can with new where it needs to be. So to get these off, the first thing you want to do is to get rid of these 4 springs. They're usually not very tight, so you can usually get all of them off by hand. Just stretch out the spring, twist it, and then pop them off. And then for this one, you want to compress this spring a little bit, slide the retainer spring off, take it off. You don't have to take off this side. I don't, because I don't want to lose them. And then what you need to do is loosen them up, and then you have 2 10 millimeter bolts at the top and 2 10 millimeter bolts at the bottom. All right, and there you go. There is the bottom of your seat. This is the passenger side. I'm going to flip the driver's side up just to show you something really quickly that I found out. So one thing you do want to notice is that the passenger side uses the front bolt hole and this middle bolt hole, while the driver's side uses the front hole and this third hole down from the front as the mounting points. So you want to be cautious of paying attention where those are at, so you don't drill into the wrong spot. So let's go ahead and break out the new seat tracks and see how they bolt up. All right, so here is the new seat tracks from Kentucky Mustang. Like I said, this is the same kit you can get from multiple vendors. It has the left and right track, and then it has a spring and nut kit, bolt kit. I won't be reusing these bolts because they're Phillips head. I'm going to reuse the bolts that came out of it. So like I said, it's the same thing. You want to get rid of take the spring off so it makes it a little bit easier to move. Looking at it, there's no lubrication on it at all. So I will put some lubrication in there. I'll probably spray some white lithium grease down inside of here to lubricate it. So let's see where we bolt it. So there's a couple of options you can do. You can mount it in the front. So once I put it in the top, so as you see, it's quite a bit shorter than the stock track. So I've already kind of fabbed this up a little bit. So this is where you can bolt it in. These holes are not threaded on this seat. It's only only this bolt hole is threaded. The other option is to bolt it in at the bottom. So either way you go, you're going to have to drill a new hole. You bolt it in down here. You're going to be drilling a hole approximately here. So the problem I have is that, like I said, if you use this bolt hole, you have to use this bolt hole. So you would have to completely drill this hole in. If you use this one on the driver's side, you'll have to tap this hole here. And then your bolt hole up here is going straight through your leather. So what I'm going to do is use the front hole, the forward hole towards the front of the seat on both the seats. So that way, when I put the seat in, I'm drilling in the same spot on all 4 seats, or excuse me, on both seats. I'm drilling 4 holes in the same spot on 2 seats. Roughly right there. So this metal is too thin for me to comfortably just drill and tap it. So what I'm going to do is drill through it and then put a washer and a nut on the backside. So there's a fair amount of room here to move it around. But when you drill your hole, you do want to make sure that you're pretty close to center line with these holes. You can make this hole a little bit bigger, just like the hole in the track is, since you're using a nut and a bolt. Once you put it in, Then we'll measure the width, the span between the front of the track and the rear of the track, tighten it up to make sure that they're parallel. Okay, so now that you've decided which bolt hole you want to use, you want to make sure that you mark it. Like I said, I've got a pretty good scratch line in there. So I'm going to make myself a really nice circle to outline that hole. Take my track back off, set it to the side. Using a saw blade, just as a straight edge. You want to make sure you get that as centered as possible for your hole. And I'm using these 4 holes as to help me align this hole before I drill it in. And I'm just going to use a scribe to center that hole up. And that looks pretty good. And like I said, I'm going to make this hole a little bit bigger anyway, so I have some play in there to drill that hole. So when I drill it, if I drill that hole exactly the right size, if I'm off a little bit, my track's going to be skewed and it's going to be a little bit harder to move the seat forward and back. If I make this hole a little bit bigger, just like the hole in the track is, gives me a little bit of wiggle room to move that track side to side. So when I put both of them in, I can adjust it and then I can have it as close as possible to being perfectly parallel so the seat track moves nice and smoothly. So I am going to start with a smaller drill bit because I want to put a pilot hole in here before I drill all the way through, just to help it a little bit, just to make it a little bit easier to drill all the way out. This is a 23/64 drill bit, so it's a little bit bigger than the hole that's here for the threads, and it's a little bit bigger than the hole that's on the seat track itself. All right, so there's our hole. It's a little bit off to the outside, but that should be okay. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I wanted to make this hole a little bit bigger. I need to go get myself a center punch so I can tap this hole so it doesn't move as much. But there's our hole, and what I'm going to use is some grade 8 bolts. You want to use a nice strong bolt. Like I said, this is a grade 8 bolt that goes in. So I should have some grade 8 bolts because I've mocked this up a little bit, so let me go get those bolts. Alright, so here's the bolts that I've got. They're quite a bit longer, but that's okay because there's plenty of room between the bottom of the seat and the pad. So they're going to fit in there just fine. Pick these up at Home Depot. You can pick these up at most of your most of your home improvement stores, auto parts stores, stuff like that. You can pick them up just about anywhere. Get your front bolt in. Leave that loose. Put your back bolt in. I'm going to put the lock washer on this side, a washer on the back side, and your nut. Now, this is what I was concerned with, is now that I don't even have this tight yet, but as you can see, on the 68 Mustangs, this leather isn't present. So this is really snug, and like I said, I don't have this track completely tight yet, and it's already rubbing, it's rubbing on the leather from the seat. So I'm going to take these bolts back out. So to alleviate that, I'm going to put these 2 washers on here. These are just 5/16 flat washers. I just want to spread this out. I want to give a little bit of space between the mechanism here that locks it in place, which is quite a bit deeper than the 92 mechanism, just to make it a little bit easier to use. So put the bottom one on first, washer on, nut on, and since this bolt is quite a bit longer, plenty of room to move this around. To get the top one in, same thing with a couple of washers. You hold the track away from the frame. Now, as you see, that works. That latching mechanism works much better. It's nice and easy to move. It'll latch in place. And now we're done. So, like I said, I don't want to tighten this up yet. I don't want to tighten this bolt up until I get my other track on, so I make sure that I have this spread right and it'll be parallel. So as you see, it's got a little bit of movement to get it centered. Hopefully I'm close enough that I can get that all the way on once I drill this hole. So I'll go ahead and pause it, I'll drill this hole, and I'll start putting this other track on. All right, so we have our first track on. Now we need to put the second track on that has the actuator arm. So the actuator arm has the knob that comes on it. All that does is just pop off and then pop off the retaining clip. So you see how hard this bend is. On the stock 68 Mustang, this is much shorter. So as you see when it's sitting here, you're going to be rubbing into the seat foam if you mount it this way. That's one of the other reasons I mounted it with the forward bolts. Because if you mount it with the back, even once we bend this out, it's hard to get to this knob to adjust the seat. So as you see, it's sitting in, here's our bolt hole, it's sitting in there, and it's already rubbing on the cushion. So what we're going to do is straighten this out. I'm going to wrap this rag around it just because I don't want to damage it too much. And I've just got a piece of pipe that I'm going to slide over that and slowly bend that out until I'm happy with how it sits on the car itself, or on the seat itself. Go ahead, I mean, if you want, you can go ahead and bend this to where it's perfectly straight. And for me, that looks pretty good. Got a little bit of room under there, and like I said, once I space this out with the washers, it's going to sit up pretty good. So that's a pretty good spot. So if you go ahead and use these back bolts, you see that you can't even hardly reach this if you use the bolts that are further back. You can't reach that knob to adjust the seat. So this is where I like it. That's pretty good. It's got a good enough bend on it, and it's going to be easy to grab. So it's got this little notch in it. It's got a notch on the retaining clip. Slide that on, and there we go. Now we're in place. So same thing, we want to bolt this in. So now this time I'm going to try and put a little bit of a pilot hole in there. Not really a pilot hole, but a dimple. I don't have a center punch. I need to go get one for my toolbox here at home. What I'm going to use is just a small, this is just a wood bit. Just to help me guide that first bit in, so I'm not jumping all over the place. Now we're ready for our track. This time I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to put the washer with the head of the bolt. 2 washers to space it out. A washer and a lock washer on the back side. Then my nut. And then again, the bolt. Snug that top bolt up just a little bit. Now, like I said, before I tighten these up, I want to measure the span between the back and the front. So I want to make sure that these are as close to parallel as possible. So right now at the top, I'm at 13 1/8 at the top, and I'm at about 13 1/16 at the bottom. There we go. So now I'm at 13 1/8 at the bottom. So I'm going to tighten this one up first because I can get a wrench on this back side. Now the one issue with using hex head bolts like this is that the point of the bolt is wider than the inside of the track. So I'm going to have to find some bolts like this that have a small hex on them, a 10mm hex on them with the flare, that are long enough to use the bolt head. But for now, what you can do is make sure that when you tighten this up, your flats are parallel to the track. And then you don't have any issues rolling that track. So you can see how tight this one is. So what I'm going to spray in there is some white lithium grease. I'm just going to spray it down inside each one of the tracks. There we go. And that's how you want to see them. That's how you want to see them slide. Much better. Clean off that excess. So this stuff is pretty good. It's an aerosol, so it gets into a lot of these small areas. So it's an aerosol, but it dries up pretty good, and it lasts quite a while. It's not going to have any heat in here. It's not going to have a lot of pressure in here. So you don't need anything super strong for this lubricant. This white lithium should work pretty well. All right, so now that we have our tracks on, we need to install our springs. Just like on the 92 seats, we have 4 springs in total. We have 1 spring on each side that's going to retract our actuator, our 2 smaller springs, and then we have a main spring that's going to return the tracks itself. So how you want to do this is take your seat track all the way down as close as you can to the bottom, and then the connecting rod that goes between the 2 seats is 3 pieces. So you have this one that's got 3 little curves in it, and it's threaded, and then this one has a coil on the end, and then one corner or one bend in it, and then you have this little threaded block. This is actually going to tighten up the spring itself. So you slide this one through until we get all the way down. This one goes on the actuator bar, and when you want to use the forwardmost hole on this one, and this one's pretty flexible, so you can kind of bend it up in there until it pops in. It just locks on that way and comes across to the secondary side. This one, you want to go into the rearmost hole. Using the forwardmost and the rearmost hole is going to give you the leverage you need to actuate these arms. And this one, you just want to bend it through, push your cushion down out of the way of your tensioning rods until you're across. This is just a little turnbuckle to tighten it up. Just get it on there for now until you get your springs on. Your 2 smaller springs, there's 2 holes on the track. You'll put one end in the track and then one end onto the actuator. There we go. Slide your track as far as you can to the bottom, but make sure that it returns all the way in. You want to make sure that this is locked towards the center of the seat before you tighten up your turnbuckle. Again, make sure that this one's seated before you tighten up your turnbuckle. And you just need your turnbuckle tight enough to where you don't have any play in either side. And then that way you make sure that you release both sides, and both sides still operate nice and smooth. So you've got a little bit of movement on this. It's fine. As you adjust it a little bit, it'll stretch a little bit, so you want to just work it a couple times until you're happy with how it works. This bar is pretty thin, so if you get it too tight, you'll either bend this out or you bend this coil out and it'll pop out, and you won't actually loosen up this one when you go to adjust the seat, and you'll kind of be stuck taking the seat in and out and moving it around. And then what you can do is move your seat all the way down until it's in the lowest most position. Your long arm of the spring goes into the top, and then on the 68, this normally goes this way into a hole that's over here, but I'm going to use this hole right here on the 92 seats. And then we're in. So make sure you're in each of your catches, and that's what's actually going to return your seat. So now we're pretty snug. Everything's tightened up. So what I want to do is just put this in to a position to where I know both tracks are in the same position forward and back. And what I'm going to use is the head of this bolt. So I've got a little bit of the head of the bolt shown. There we go. So we should be in the same position now for both of the tracks, because if these are out of place, when you go to put it into the car, you'll never get it in. If you're one latch off, when you go to put it in, your seat's going to be cocked one side or the other. So you do want to make sure that they're in the same position relatively to the track. So I've got a little bit more than, you know, right about half of each bolt hole, so I should be pretty close. So we'll go ahead and we'll put this into the car, and then we'll bolt it in place, and we'll be done with the passenger side. The driver's side is going to be exactly the same way. Put the front bolt on, mark your holes, see where you want to drill it in, and then everything else is going to be the same. So I won't do that one in, but this is how you put this seat in. This is ready to bolt into the seat. So let's go ahead and move into the inside of the car, and we'll drop this in. All right, so here we are inside of the car, and here are the 4 holes where our studs are going to go in. When I put this in, I'm going to keep the seat leaned forward, just so the way that a seat keeps it forward and keeps it from tilting back. So when I drop the studs through, they don't tilt back, and I can actually bolt these in. Now that we have our seat inside the car, I'm going to double check my tracks to make sure that they're lined up. Line up the back holes. Line up the front holes. And then, like I said, tilt the seat forward. That keeps the seat centered onto the pan, and it doesn't let it tilt backwards. All right, so underneath here are the 4 openings for your bolts. It's got these bolts on it that have a built-in wedge washer, and that is a 1/2 inch bolt. And as you put these in, you want to make sure that you get all 4 of your bolts started before you tighten any of them up, just in case you need to move the seat a little bit. I am not going to torque these down to the actual torque specs, because as you saw, I don't currently have the insulation in the car, and I don't have the carpeting in the car, so I know I'm going to take these out again. But I do want to make sure that they're snug. All right, so there's our seat fully installed. All right, so our lever works. We can move forward and back. Right now my legs are stretched out completely. Sits in pretty good, nice and firm. Again, this is the passenger side seat. That's all the way up. My knees are right on the floorboard, a little bit bent. That's okay. Pretty comfortable for a 1968 Mustang. Our seat back works. Leans back pretty far. This is one thing that I've got to work on, is this looseness of the seat back. I think there's probably a bushing in here somewhere that needs to be replaced. But the recline works, the tracks work, so pretty happy with where this comes out. Got plenty of room between my head and the roof. I'm going to be using a one-piece headliner in this car, so it's going to sit pretty flush to the top. I'm not using the regular cloth or vinyl headliner that came in the 68s. I've already got rid of the bows, already taken them out. I'll probably go with the Mustang GT one-piece headliner. From what I've heard, that sits pretty close to the roof and gives you about an extra inch or so of headroom. This seat out of the 92 does have bolsters on the side of the seat, on the side of the bottom, to squeeze it in and out. and it also has an electric lumbar on the passenger and the driver's side. So both of them function exactly the same way. Forward and back is fine. For me, the headspace or the headroom is enough. Even with it all the way forward, I've got about 4 inches of headroom. If you look at the back of the seat, right here is where the original 68 Mustang seat would end, because it's usually right at the top of the door line is where the top of the seat was. So I've got another 2 or 3 inches with the top of the seat, and then the headrest. So it's going to be quite a bit safer if I do get into a rear end collision. The headrest is actually going to work the way it's intended to do. It's going to keep my head from snapping back, prevent some of the spinal cord injuries if I do get into a rear end collision. But the seats look like they fit into the 68. They're not overly large. They're designed fairly close to what the original 68 design was, with like I said, with the vertical ribs. So I'm really happy with how the seat turned out. I'm not going to put any of the video of installing the driver's side seat. It is exactly the same as how the passenger side seat went in. Like I said, other than where the bolt holes are going to go in the seat, which bolt holes you would use. Like I said, I use the forward set of holes. If you're taller, you can use some of the holes further back. I believe that gives you a little more leg room, is what I understand. There's seat track extensions that you can put on to give you more leg room. I don't need it. I'm only 5'9". I'm a pretty average guy, height-wise, so I don't think I'm going to need it. As you move the seat forward and back, since it's sloped, the further you go back, the lower the seat gets. It's got a little bit of a tilt to it naturally, just the way the seat pan is, but it's pretty comfortable. The back part of the seat is a little bit lower than the legs. If you want to adjust that, you can put some extra washers between the track and the seat and give it a little bit less tilt. And you can still bolt it all together. So instead of using 2 washers in the front and the back, and you can use 4 washers in the back and actually tilt the seat up a little bit. So it's not quite as angled. But I had a 68 Mustang when I was young, right out of high school. So I'm pretty used to how it sits. I'm pretty comfortable with how it sits. And like I said, it's pretty comfortable. You know, it's a nice driving position. So really happy with how the installation goes in. So won't be doing any of the video on the driver's side. The driver's side goes in exactly the same way as the passenger side. Bolts in the same way. You'll have to drill 2 holes into the seat base and then bolt it in together. I'll go ahead and use the washers between the track and the seat to keep it separated so that the actuator works fine. The actuator works the way I want it to. And then bolt it in. Like I said, all of this is going to come back out eventually because I still have to put in the carpeting and the installation. But really happy with how this turns out. Like I said, these are 1992 Mustang GT hatchback seats. The coupe is, from what I understand, is exactly the same as the hatchback. The convertible is a little bit different. It has a seat retainer or a seatbelt retainer on it that comes between the headrest and the seat. So I might look into those just to retain the seatbelt to make it a little bit easier to get to the seatbelt itself once I get there. That's pretty far down the road. Like you see, this car is still pretty well stripped. Still got a long way to go before it's drivable. But this is one thing off the checklist. The seats are ready to go in. I've got 2 holes left to drill in the driver's side to put it in, and then the seats are done. It's drivable enough, even with the wear mark on the driver's side. I can just put some, I'll go get a patch from a material store, Michael's or something like that, and iron on a patch, or even just use some black gaffer's tape or something like that to cover it up for now. If I can cover it up, even if I can get some cheap seat covers from AutoZone or O'Reilly's or something like that for 60 or 70 bucks, put those on until I decide how I want to do the interior. I can do that as a driver, and that's fine. But they're serviceable enough for now. So like I said, I'm pretty happy with it. Got about 150 bucks in these seats. The foam is still fine. The foam doesn't have to be replaced. All I have to do is get them reupholstered, and they're going to look really great. Pretty simple installation to get a much better seat than what the 68 came with from the factory. Much cheaper than going out and getting Recaros or Corbos or TMI seats that cost you $500, $600, $800 a piece. looks like it belongs in the car, came out of a Mustang, so that's a plus. So it is a Ford product in a Ford car, a Mustang seat in a Mustang. Can't get really much better than that. It looks like it belongs in the car. It looks like a seat that would have came in the car in 1968 if they were using these higher backet seats. So I'm really happy with where it came out. So like I said, follow the videos, subscribe, like my channel. It helps me as a creator, helps me get the videos out there. I do what I can to help support the community, just like a bunch of the other guys do that I've watched videos on how to do this stuff. So other than that, it's coming up on Thanksgiving for me. Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, peace to everybody out there. Be nice to everyone. Have a great Mustang Day. Love y'all. Project 68.